Hello and welcome to German Diction. This is your instructor, Daniel Summer. This is the fall semester review. This is part 3, word stress and compound words. So in German, the word stress plays an incredibly important role, more so than in some other languages. Now we'll be going over some of the weak and strong prefixes found in German. It would also be helpful to review Step 4, Supplementary Material, where we go over many of the schwa spellings. So here we have some of our weak prefixes. This is by no means a complete list, but it is some of the more common ones. We start off with be, the B schwa, be, beweine, empfangen, entgegen. And then we have our prefix, ergeben, gebracht, verachtet, zerrissen. Here we have our regularly stressed prefixes. And again, this is a partial list. There are many more than this, but these are some of the more common ones. And we can see these prefixes also appear as words by themselves, and when they're attached to other words, they receive the main stress. So it moves the stress to the beginning of the word. Abbrechen, angeschaut. And as we do this, we need to pronounce each part independently. So when we see this word, angeschaut, we look at the angeschaut as three separate parts, not angeschaut. So even though the ng can make the ng sound when we see it as part of a single unit, this is not that. We have to look at each part separately. Angeschaut. And then going on, auf, aufstehen, aus, ausbleiben, bei, beiliegen, eingehen, mitbringen, nachsehen, überliegen, umbringen, ungesehen, vorsehen. And this last one, weglassen. Even though the GL very commonly is gl pronounced together, here we have to look at each part individually and pronounce each part separately. Weglassen. So it would be a good idea to go through this chart again and become more familiar with these prefixes and these words. Hin und her. And these word parts can be stressed or unstressed depending on how they're functioning. So we'll first look at when they're stressed. So just like we had several prefixes that go right before a main part, eingehen, and so on, hin und her can appear in those stressed positions as well. Hingehen, hergehen, woher, wohin, hinwerfen, herbringen. Hin und her can also appear as unstressed prefixes, so many of those other stressed prefixes can be combined with hin or her and make a new word or a new preposition. So herab, heran, heraus. And we see that it goes from being a closed E vowel to the open E, and then also that the R is no longer schwad, but it becomes part of the next word part. Herab, heran, heraus. And similarly with hin, hinab, hinein, hinauf. So let's take a look at an example. Here we have gehen. Then we have our stress prefix aus. So we have ausgehen. And we can add her to aus. Heraus, herausgehen. And here we have another example. So we have gegangen. So we see we have our GE prefix, gang, and then our EN ending, which is also a schwa E and an N. So gegangen. And then we can add our stressed prefix, aus, ausgegangen. And then we can add her to aus, herausgegangen. So when we know what the word parts are, these long words become manageable and we can see how they're going to be put together and pronounced. Here we have our weak suffixes, and this is a partial list, but some of the more common ones. And the thing to remember with our suffixes, or these suffixes, is that the main word part still stays the same. So if the vowel would be long without the suffix, it still stays long when we add the suffix. So a vowel plus one consonant rule still remains. So here we go. Chen, Liedchen, Haft, liebhaft. And again, we see that that first part, lieb, is nice and long, and we add the haft, and it still stays lieb, nice and long. Liebhaft. Going on, Heit, Freiheit, Kite, Heiligkeit, Lein, Kindlein, Lich, freundlich, los, endlos. And with this los suffix, it almost receives a double stress. It's a long O at the end. It's not quite equal, but more equal than the others. Endlos. Going on, nis, Erlaubnis, Saal, Trübsal, Sam, folgsam, Schaft, Freundschaft. So here we're going to look at a few words, and we'll see that they all have some of our suffixes, and we'll even see that the suffixes can be added upon suffixes. So it's not just those suffixes alone, but it can be in combination with other words and word parts. So we'll start with something that we all like, Freunde, friends. And if you have a male friend, you have ein Freund or eine Freundin. But if you don't have any friends, you would be freundlos. And if you'd like to change that, you might want to be freundlich. And it's through Freundlichkeit that we develop Freundschaft. But if we're unfreundlich, we might be entfreundet. And then we would be in a state of Freundlosigkeit. So that was a lot of words based off of one base, Freund. And if you can go through these few examples and really understand how it's broken up, you have a good understanding of how these suffixes and prefixes work. So go through those suffixes again and really become comfortable, and you'll start to see that these suffixes and prefixes really exist very frequently in the texts. Many people make jokes about how German words can go on forever and ever, and it's kind of true. And what we need to do is train our eye to start seeing how those words are broken up. And as we talked about in class, this is something that comes with experience. So it's okay in the beginning if it's not exact and you make good guesses, but there are good guesses and there's less good guesses. And so we want to start training our eye and our mind to start seeing how these words are broken up. And we'll see some patterns. So we have this first example, Liebeswonne. And so the first part, Liebes, the second part, Wonne. And if you didn't know, but you know German a little bit, you'd know that S and W really aren't a combination. And so if there was any doubt about where the break would be, that would be a clue as to where the word is broken up. Liebeswonne, Liebeswonne. And we see that the first part receives the stress, and this is very typical for these compound words for the main part to receive the main stress. Here we have another example, Lichtstrahl. So it's made up of Licht plus Strahl. And again, the first part receives the stress, Lichtstrahl. And our last example for today, Meeresritt. And again, we know from our experience that SR is not a combination that appears by itself. So we're going to split before the R, and we have Meeres and Ritt. So Meeresritt. So things to remember are to pronounce each part as if it's by itself, and then also that the internal stress still applies, and that the first word is usually stressed. So that's it for this video for part 3. For further preparation, you might want to review your notes and examples from class. There are many texts that were handed out that we didn't go over in class, or texts that we did go over but you might want to review. You can also work with a partner, and that's a great way to check yourself and also to check your own ears. So lots of things you can do. And again, I want you all to do very well on this test. If you've made it through part 3 at the end and you're here, I'm sure you're going to do very well on the test. So up next we have the final exam, and I wish you all viel Erfolg, much success.